Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care anyway, guys? We don't care if we win, lose, or draw, but honestly, I could have cried. Watching us go away to a top side in one of Europe's top leagues in the Champions League and pick up a very valuable, very well earned draw, on top of getting a clean sheet on top of it. It just feels like the stuff of dreams, and it feels like progression. It feels like there's been progression over the last couple of seasons, and what a game we had, what a result. And it's definitely goes down in my book as the best nil-nil draw I've ever watched in my life. In the video today, we're going to be breaking down what we've seen in Bergamo from the boys that were the heroes, the warriors that put the body on the line for the hoops the whole game. And we weren't that far away from maybe a shock and maybe snatching something. Looking at what Brendan Rodgers changed in this game, what Atalanta actually brought to this match, which was a little bit different than what we maybe thought about in the preview, as well as generally how the game shook out, what we learned from it, what we take from it as we go into Motherwell away before we look ahead to Leipzig at home. At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and get into the comment section and let me know what your big takeaway is. What were your what made you the happiest about that game? Because there's some great topics where we're getting stuck into it in the video, and I'm always interested to hear, what your highlights of the matches were. Because the highlights of this game are more kind of character in the team based rather than like what goal was your favourite or some stuff like that, or what refereeing decision was the worst. And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into this one. Because Celtic fans all around the world were hanging on Brendan Rodgers' words in the press conferences leading up to this match, talking again about how they don't need to change their style of play. Atalanta are even maybe a team to be admired for doing such behaviour, and all of us were prepared for the worst, thinking about this stretched open midfield that might have just been cut open to pieces. But there was changes, there was some adjustments, and honestly, like I said in the intro, like I could have cried by the end of the game. Honestly, it was beautiful defending that some of the best defensive teams in the world that are good winning teams. Being defensive doesn't mean you don't like winning football matches. Would have been proud of. The main thing, and by the way, we got a lot of fantastic positive comments on the channel over the last week or two. Thanks to everyone that does subscribe to the channel, gets involved in the comment section, and is enjoying the content here. So fist bumps to all of you guys. But one of you is Brendan Rodgers' burner account. I can tell because it was McGregor Engels. Maybe not quite a full-on double pivot, but certainly arm in arm almost in the engine room in certain periods where we were off the ball and we were shaping up depending on where the ball was for them, and even when we got further into our own half when we were in that kind of defence shape of protecting the box as well as trying to confront the ball. And it was great to see because it did really nullify everything that Atalanta had to do. One of the big mistakes from the Borussia Dortmund match was that we were trying to defend on the halfway line. Like when their goalkeeper had the ball, we didn't just get to the halfway line like we did in Dortmund. Trusty and Scales in this game, and they're coming out this as the big winners of this match. Of course, Liam Scales is owed a lot of apology letters where I'm from. Scaldini, and by the way, I've got no idea when that actually changed. It must have been when we were doing the squad videos, because he's always been on this tactics board as Scaldini, and I can't believe somehow we ended up back in the Scales. But they were much closer together, and like I said a second ago, the absolute heroes of the match, and them just being a little bit closer and a little bit deeper. Even when it was all in the Atalanta half, we never got onto the halfway line. We were certainly just protecting a little bit more of the pitch, just to give ourselves a bit of that head start. Because if these guys were going to try and break from like the halfway line, like Scales and Trusty, I've just got less of a chance. But if they've got a bit of a head start, or the guys have to start a bit deeper, then the ball has to be a bit braver. And if the goalkeeper is capable, like Schmeichel is, then it just means playing the ball into this type of zone here, like from distance or a longer pass or whatever, is just dead. So Scales and Trusty, I thought that was absolutely great, and it gave us like a fantastic foundation going into this match. And that was like the number one difference for me on Dortmund versus Atalanta. And we kind of seen this across the whole defence, because Alistair Johnson, who by the way is an absolute legend for getting booked in the 5th minute or whatever it was and finishing the match. And I'm recording this basically after the match has happened, and I seen a great tweet on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, or somebody saying, and I totally echo it, but if Johnson turns out to be totally fit after this game and he was acting it, then it goes way up in my estimation, some proper shithousery, which is one of the hallmarks that we've seen from Trusty and from Scales. Because when they were challenged one-on-one, whether it was like in a recovery kind of position or a counter-attack, they did really good at staying with their man. But even when it was like more of a sustained attack that was maybe happening from Atalanta, and they were playing with the ball out wide and then bringing it back into the centre position and putting these guys on the ball that are dangerous. They were not shy of just really getting a hold of them and just like really, as long as it wasn't terribly, like we never did anything in the box, for example, but they were happy to bring a man down. They were happy to just like kill the attack and then let's set up properly and then we can deal with it in the air. And the amount of effective clearances that Trusty and Scales made in this match was inhumane. It was absolutely fantastic. But individually, they just did a lot better, I think, because they were tighter, we were deeper overall. And even when we were in like a proper defensive shape in the first half and they were like setting up, you know, the positions that they like to take. And really in the first half, there was only two kind of fixed parts of Atalanta. Retegui was like pinned in this area constantly. And Bellanova as well was never too far away. And when you've got Zappacosta on this side of the pitch, who is very two-footed, as I think we all seen last night, the rest of the team has a lot of freedom to take up whatever positions they really want, as long as they're not completely vacating the centre ground, as it were. They're at least protecting their side of the pitch as much as they can. And whenever they were getting this kind of thing on the go where they play it out wide, it's all coming down the right-hand side for them, with Kolasinac, Pasalic, and Lookman especially. And we were able to deal with it most of the time very, very well, because Engels and McGregor in front of this kind of tighter, Trusty and Scales defence, it just killed that space in between them, which is the space that Dortmund had galore to just operate in and behind McGregor singularly and then play passes to the strikers, whereas now they were forced to try and play all those passes in front of the back four, in between them in defence, where, you know, Engels is in here. And Engels, you know, it was fine, wasn't he, I suppose, in this match, but he was very good at taking up the right positions at the right time. And we even see Nicholas Kuhn, like there was periods of this game where Kuhn was in between Johnson and Trusty, or in, you know, in this kind of almost centre back position. He was really good at like his recovery positions he was picking up. And you know, this is something that we've seen very early on in the season from Kuhn. I forget what game it was, but it was like early on in the season, and it was like 2 or 3 games on the row where, you know, the opposition would try and like half play out from the back. And he was really good at winning possession for us. And it's been a while since we've maybe seen it, but that was something that really shone out from him, is his kind of tenacity and keeping with the ball. And then when he does win it, him, Engels and Johnson have really got something cooking on this right side of the pitch here, because they were up against some really tough opposition here. Ademola Lookman, who's one of the most dangerous forwards in Europe at the moment. Zappacosta, who I think, as you've seen, for a left wing back who doesn't look like much, but he's really strong, proper Italian left back, international type guy. But his right foot is probably just as good as his left, if not better. And on this side of the pitch here, you've got 2 real problems to handle with a guy like Kolasinac, who is famous for his like wand of a left foot from a centre back, or for a left back when he was younger. To deal with these guys in this area here and make sure that, really, I know they had some shots and all the rest of it. Pasalic ended this game with 5 big chances missed, which is a statistical sitter, is what that means. 5. They did create some opportunities. They did get some shots away on goal and all the rest of it, but they were limited to ones where they were heavily contested. And even though they were maybe inside the box, these headers and stuff like that, there's plenty of competition up in the air for them. We're not making anything easy. And because we're maybe a bit happier to let them have the ball out wide, like especially out here on the left, because they want Lookman to run into space, and if he has to come to feet, that's a different game altogether for him. But what they did try and do with these guys especially, is they did want to focus everything on the right, and then back post delivery was what they were going to be all about. And really, I think Valley and Scales did absolutely brilliant between them at dealing with the threat of this constantly throughout the game. Like Scales, really, for me, Scales and Alistair Johnson, when this game is all said and done, for me, they are like firmly in my estimations. And I think they've maybe been there or thereabouts on the channel, certainly. But like, I think this game really does cement them as like Champions League level defenders in our club, you know, which is a great progression, there's that word again, to see from guys that have been at the club for a few years, and they have developed to that level, playing for us with the various, you know, managers and systems and everything else that we've been speaking about. But, you know, to deal with this type of level of threat on this side of the pitch here, I just thought that they all did absolutely fantastic, with them not having to do anything too spectacular. You know, a lot of it is positioning and cutting off passing lanes. And McGregor, like, I don't know if I'm just a wee bit hyper focused on him just for doing the content and everything, but again, he boiled my piss a few times in this game, because he just does that thing where he shadows and jockeys. But like, if the Rune wants to keep going like this, McGregor will keep going like that, like, and it infuriates me until like a certain point, I think. But it's like, so like, when people are coming forward, you should be holding ground, or at least threatening to go forward and confront them a little bit. And for me, especially in the first 20, 25 minutes, whenever Hatate was coming back in, and I'm talking about like 2 or 3 times in the first 10 minutes, and by the time we got to minute 25, he'd done it 4 or 5 times, where he was coming back into these areas here when it was trying to get played around the back area where they were trying to pin their guys on what they maybe perceived to be the weak side of the team. And whether it be Hatate directly winning the tackle, getting an interception or whatever, he was so good at confronting them, like getting in their face and then making something happen. And unfortunately, I think if we'd won this game, Hatate would have been the guy that everyone was talking about, because these balls he was playing up the pitch for is exactly the route to go we want to be trying to exploit against a team like Atalanta. We said as much in the preview. I get the whole Adam Ida thing as well. It made sense. I was behind it from kickoff. He didn't really deliver, sadly. And I would think, Kyogo came on probably at just about the right time, although when it's all said and done, maybe a discussion for halftime, but I think that's really nitpicking at its finest. But Hatate was getting back and winning the ball, making things really difficult for them to play into as well, because they're all about trying to overload and putting just random players a bit further forward. And because Hatate was given that role of being like the pressing midfielder, the advanced midfielder as it were, by the time he does come back in to recover, he's coming in to confront the ball. Like he comes into wherever the ball is at, and he just wants to get involved, try and win it, make it harder for them to play or whatever. And that's just way more effective than standing off players and all the rest of it. And for me, like his play, and it's what you call, it's a fancy word for playing good football, but transition play, from being able to take it from defence and take it into attack, is the best in the squad, and we wouldn't have looked as threatening in the first half if it wasn't for a lot of stuff that Hatate was doing. And that then, we've seen Jamiste and we did see Kolasinac like get a bit higher as the game went on, but certainly in the opening stages of the match, like Kolasinac was maybe just a little bit more like in front of the centre backs, and Jamiste was just making sure that he was close to Dyson, or close enough where he could try and cover and intercept any kind of long ball that went his way. And they were a wee bit more compact and a wee bit more reserved. But then as the game went on, they felt a bit more confident. And you've seen a lot of these guys just popping up in a lot more dangerous places. And, I think we matched every test. They did have like a bunch of sitters missed, like statistical sitters, big chances missed. And I don't really think we got any of that. I think their goalkeeper is definitely the least worked player in the game on this one. And for Atalanta, like this is a great draw, honestly, and to play like this, especially the defensive performance individually of Scales and Trusty, like always so tight to their man, winning the ball convincingly. And there was a few moments as well where Trusty was just carrying it. He was just carrying it out from the back, same as we've seen Scales do a few times. And Scales normally gives a lot of people the fear when he does this, but it's normally because he's trying to play like super direct and maybe it doesn't come off. Didn't really see anything like that in this game from my memory, certainly, but having two defenders, and one of the things I did think about this is like Trusty is Scales last year, and Scales has just done that, and Scales is like, for me, an excellent defender, and I felt like Scales kind of led this defence in a way in terms of like leading by an example. I think Johnson did a great job as well of doing that similar kind of role as well, but for me, like Trusty and Scales just went about, they were like the bomb squad, anything comes anywhere near us, between the two of us, we're going to deal with it, and they felt like a proper partnership. And we do get that with Vickers, but see, because Trusty is just able to cover a little bit of ground a little bit quicker, and like Carter Vickers gets great passing statistics, but if you watch Carter Vickers, like he will play like to one guy that's just next to him. He will move the ball from here to here, from here to here. Like he's very rarely hitting this guy, going out here, or even carrying it. Like if he carries it, it's like once every second game, and he maybe gets so far. Sometimes things happen, whatever. But Trusty just feels like he's up for that a little bit more. He'll do it a bit more. He's capable of it a little bit more. And like, yeah, I thought that was a huge part of this as well. Like the individual battles that they were winning was brilliant to watch on TV. By the way, for all the away fans, it must have been some buzz actually leaving a stadium like that. And, we've got something. We've spoiled the party for the locals, and we're bringing a point back to the table, which is great. But watching it on the TV, like you've really seen a lot. There's a lot of focus on the individual qualities of everything. But I do feel that the defence as a unit played absolutely fantastic. And I do think Hatate along with Kuhn, but when it does come to anything we did try and do in the attacking sense, like they were both just a little bit too anxious, just a little bit too, just lacking that next 5% of composure or something like that would have just made some of this stuff happen, because we did get opportunities. Dyson, I didn't feel was at the races. It did feel like a little bit of the Dyson we had at the weekend come into this match, where he'd done what he does and everything, but it just didn't feel like we had that extra, like fully tapped in, fully optimized Dyson for this game. So I did feel that was a bit of a let off for them in that regard, because we did see his qualities, of course, but it just didn't feel that even if whenever we did come down this side of the pitch, we did have Kuhn. Like you're always thinking, brilliant. Dyson's at the back. Ida can go wherever attack the ball a bit more ferociously. He's going to take the main defender with him into places. But we just never really got anything off, I don't think. And as much as they were quite happy to hang these guys out on the right hand side, or their right hand side, our left hand side, we didn't really want to play out on the left hand side. But Valley was actually really up for this game, and Valley had a lot of question marks coming into this match. Like, is he good enough? Has he been playing well? A lot of people have been kind of like juries out with him. I'm quite firmly of the opinion that he's a good player. Quite clearly, he's not the finished article, but it's about what qualities does he bring. And with some of the progression that I think, like I mentioned already, is there to be seen with Scales and Johnson, certainly. What development can he do at Celtic? Could he be good enough for us eventually? By the end of this season, at some point next year, whatever, every player progresses at a different stage. And I think on top of some of the stuff we've seen from Dortmund, he did slip and slide a little bit, but a lot of the stuff we've seen in this game was way, way better. Like the sort of performance he had in this game is similar to a lot of the performance. I know he's not had that many appearances, right? But it's actually very similar to every other opponent he's played, whether it's been, like Falkirk or whatever. But this is Atalanta he was doing it against. He's got that La Masia. He's also came from Barcelona. He's used to being around big players, big European venues and all the rest of it. It's not like it's a new thing to him. Like he's came over from Ireland or Canada or something like that, And, everyone will remember when he pops up in this zone here, very Greg Taylor. But he was very quick to, again, similar to Hatate, just try and confront the ball, try and make something happen. And if he did lose it, he just knew his spot to get back into. And there was a moment, I think it was maybe more in the second half, where Scales get caught out coming up for a clearance. And Valley just filled in right next to Trusty. And maybe there was a period they play for like 30, 40 seconds when the situation was like this. And we were all like, can't wait for the ball to go out so they can sort themselves out. But again, I think I don't know if I'd quite go as far to say covered himself in glory, but like he definitely had a pass mark game. He definitely showed the qualities, the raw potential that he has without, again, being exceptional. I thought he was just very, very good. And Atalanta huffed and puffed and they gave absolutely everything they could in this game. But, for me, football, like, a lot of what the preparation and what the coach is able to do for me is what you're going to see in the first half to the first 60 minutes. Because once you get to the subs happening, everyone's then adapting to the game. Formations might change. The subs themselves will be, bespoke to the moment, of course. And Atalanta make 2 subs on the 58th minute. They bring on Samardzic, who was their Matt O'Reilly replacement because they cheaped out. If you buy cheap, you buy twice. And they took off Retigui for Charles de Ketelaere. Now, this is when I thought that this is where the game might turn, because I thought maybe Darun would have been out here and Samardzic in the middle, but Samardzic just stayed on the right hand side, but again it was just being super narrow because that's just the way they've been playing the whole game. And Charles de Ketelaere, as you probably seen when he came on, like the guy's like just way talented, just like a really clever footballer. He was really unlucky. He had a nice kind of spinning shot from this kind of position here. He's very, very two-footed, and a lot of these players are very versatile and quite interchangeable. And when you just mix too many of them up, they can just run into unusual spaces and get on the end of some wonky passes and crosses and catch out really good defenders that are switched on just because they can't teleport, because some of these guys are also lightning fast and can just do that to you. But again, it never really changed how badly like we felt threatened in this game. You did feel that we were matching them man for man. We were getting on the ball in periods as well, and we had little spells of possession, which was refreshing, certainly, to see. And you really did feel that we were equal. You really did feel that, like, wow, we're away in Europe against an Italian side, and we're actually looking like, oh, this is an even match. This is competition that we should be in. And they're just throwing and when they start to just throw the kitchen sink at it, that's when you think, this, if it's going to go wrong, it's kind of now, isn't it? That's when they're eventually going to break the dam. They're going to get their goal, heads will go down, maybe they get 2 or 3 or whatever. But like I say, they huffed and they puffed and not much happened. And for me, for us, it was kind of job done by the 68th minute. And what I mean by that is because when Bernardo and Kyogo comes on, at that point, they're throwing the kitchen sink at it. We've just brought on a more defensive midfielder who is like a very good, like, I don't know if I'd even call him box to box, but a very good central midfielder who, is good at tackling, getting on the ball, and is not going to totally panic and do something, make a bad error or do anything crazy or anything. And that should just make us extra hard to play through. And if we can just keep this up for the next 22 minutes or something, we should do A-okay. Because what counterbalances this perfectly is bringing on Kyogo, who has just got that frightening pace where they can't get really too comfortable, where they're putting their right centre-back up and the left centre-back up and really just leaving Hein one-on-one with Ida, like they were trying to do for spells of that second half. Putting Kyogo here just totally changes that, where that's just not on anymore, because his pace is so good that if we get away and we play him in, they need more than one guy to deal with that. It's just not. It's just the way it's going to be. It's just the way football coaches, teams, players all think in these kind of situations. Natural fear of making the mistake of giving one away for your team. And at the same time as that, when you see Lookman going off for Cuadrado, and this is the way that Atalanta are now kind of shaping up, it does feel like, we've got over the worst of it. We now just need to keep our cool, not do anything stupid, don't give away any daft penalties or get anyone sent off, Alistair Johnson. And then when we get to the point where Palma and McCowan are coming on, this is the real test of the squad at this point. We get Bernardo dropping back in next to McGregor and that kind of double pivot, that engine room thing with Engels leaving. And McCowan's extra energy in here, I thought, again, very well timed substitution. I thought that would actually help us try and get out of a bit of space, because you could see Kuhn, you could see Maeda before he came off, you could see Johnson and Valley. Some of these guys had put in some amount of miles, like Hitate, I think, went box to box as well a number of times, and so many of them put so much out there. So getting that fresh injection of some very similar players in terms of the energy and what they offer just helps keep them totally from really getting everyone into our half and going on and attacking us. And it just always gives us that threat that we might get away and we might go on and win the match. And I don't know, for the last 15-10 minutes, if you start to then let yourself daydream a little bit about that, but when Palma's winning throw-ins, or he's even trying to just spray a ball on the counter attack, like, Palma's Mr. Champions League. If something was randomly going to happen for us to win this game, at this point I would not have put it past him to do something. So I didn't mind seeing him come on, to be honest with you, because Maeda was pretty puffed out, and as long as Palma didn't just do something catastrophically bad, then he was always going to be a great welcome addition, because he does have technique in his boots. We say that all the time here. Like, he's definitely not the finished article, but like, he does bring something, you do know that. And his kind of artillery, his kind of distribution that he's got with somebody like a fully fresh Kyogo, as well as maybe a McCowan that might be able to help him a bit better than Kuhn, depending on where he's been dragged to on the pitch, then again, it's just very, very well timed. So again, McCowan's very happy to come back into these positions and try and win the ball and play dirty and all. Well, not play dirty. I don't know if we did play dirty in this game, but we did definitely like just pull a few more shirts and just really leave one or two more on them and just really like arrive in the match. Which, when I was talking about the defence, I was really trying to get across. It just felt like we were on the same level, and it was like, you're not getting into our box that easy. You're not playing past me that easy. And all the subs really did bring that. Palma probably embodies that pretty well, actually. And I think Forrest definitely contributed in that way as well, for the final 10 minutes or so that he was on the pitch, filling in for Johnson at right back for a moment as well. And for the last 10 minutes, like, somebody like Forrest, like Kyogo, Palma, like, this could have, like I said in my preview, we have to come into this game being a coiled spring. And really, like, the way we actually set up in the latter stages of the matches, when they were really, like the commentary said, and I think every podcast I've listened to afterwards has said as well, like, they ran out of ideas. You could really, really see that. Without Retegui, no Scamacca, of course, playing Zaniolo in this position here, they were just not going to get much, if anything, and they got nothing out of this back four and goalkeeper, just for how good they were, man for man, covering the positions, being smart, being a team, being united. And the cover that they had from midfield was, what they need at this level. It's just defending elite level football. It's hard to get away from it. And I know the subs get kind of dripped through, but for me, this kind of started from the 68th minute. That was the beginning of like the end game. This is when the Rodgers plan. And for me, man of the match on the day is Scales. If we won the match, it could have been Hitate. But really, the person that won this game for us was Brendan Rodgers with the substitutes, the plan, the change that we had. I didn't really mention Ida so far because he didn't actually really do anything, to be honest with you. It was more of just a presence for this guy to deal with. And you had, obviously, Kuhn and Maeda are off the board now, but when you've got like that pace and support, and the ball could stick with somebody like that, like, it's just it's a three-man threat rather than a one-man threat for sending Kyogo for a run, because Kyogo's going to get on the ball and shoot. He's not going to be passing. So that's like one person to deal with, whereas in the opening stages of the game, there was more of a threat. Hitate would have been part of that mixture as well, maybe for a fourth person, where they'd have to worry about where their midfielder is and how high they play their defence, etc. But with how weaker they got in the match in terms of personnel, and although this is our second string that comes on, it does feel that we were just way better equipped for the final 22 minutes to make sure that, like, hey, we're defending, they're still throwing everything at it, they're still attacking and all the rest of it. But that was probably the most dangerous we felt in those little periods when Kyogo does get on the ball and he does have that shot that maybe on another day could have went in, the shock became, for the last 5 or 10 minutes, like, it did feel possible, didn't it? And like, Schmeichel was doing great, and you were just always crossing your fingers that the free kicks weren't to going to fly in the top bag, or a yellow card wasn't going to be a red for no stupid reason, or a penalty. Because that was just, that was going to be the only thing that stopped us, it felt like, when it got to that stage of the match. Everyone did absolutely great. And you know, the Champions League preview that I did on the channel, I had us after the Leipzig game on 4 points. We're on 4 points after 3 games. So there's 2 ways to maybe think about it. It's maybe like job done, you know, like I think after 4 games, 4 points, I think anyone would have said that's a W. So do we be a wee bit more conservative in our expectations and maybe a similar style of play that what we've seen here away to Atalanta when we're at home? Or, you know, do we take this as a confidence boost and something like, well, hey, well, we've got Leipzig at home, bring it on, but nothing really to lose, because over those 3 matches, like, a point is definitely more than anyone gives you credit for on paper when the draw's made, when you're all thinking about, right, how well could we do this year? So to get 1, we're already up. So there's 2 ways to approach the final one. We're always going to go and try and win it, of course. The Parkhead crowd won't allow anything different. But in terms of like the style and the tactics here, because I don't care what Brendan says, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of his comments in the post-match about how it was the same plan that we've seen in Dortmund, when it clearly wasn't. Like, Hatate in the first half had all of this room. He had so much more room to decide where he was going to be on the ball, when to recover back in and defend. He had a lot more freedom to just be that progressive player, to take the ball from defence into attack by a few different means. And Engels was just so much closer to McGregor. The back 4 was much closer together. And maybe that's the players on an individual basis, maybe just having a bit of a cold shower after Dortmund, and maybe the manager did try and set them up like that, who knows. But it does feel quite deliberately different coming out of this match. And even like Bernardo and McGregor, like, a lot of people call for Bernardo. I think if that's the case, and again, a lot of people are calling for Engels to maybe get rested, but I think if you could try domestically, because I think that's part of the thing with Rodgers, is he doesn't want to change everything all the way, but domestically, if you could try like McGregor, Bernardo in this sort of position here, and a lot of people are calling for McCowan to start, but for me, Hatate's still number 1 in this kind of spot. But that could be a bit of an evolution here, and then if when Engels gets back into the team, again, he can play that role very well, you know, and this probably complements the team a lot better. Does it really take anything away from us domestically? I'm not too sure. But certainly when we move up a level, I definitely think it helps us straight away, you know, because the quality of the bench, really, to be quite frank, shouldn't have really got as much out of this game, but it really looked like it could have. And a big part of it is because of putting Bernardo in his best spot. We're giving the defence a proper shield. We've got a goalkeeper that can make the saves and do what's important for us. And just having pace and having that direction, having a target man to go for, just makes all the difference. Because in these games, we're not going to be able to split our midfield in half across the pitch to make triangles with left backs and left wingers and have one player in the middle playing the ball from left to right, you know, and same on, you know, you're not going to be able to do this, build this web of attack that they are going to try and do to us. You know, we can't do that in Europe. Maybe yet. And if that's Brendan Rodgers' ambition, then I'm here for that. Bring it on. Hopefully this is the first point on the road of many. I'm really looking forward to the Leipzig game now. Really looking forward to Motherwell at the weekend, of course. And it'll be really interesting to see, you know, like, any changes to the team. Does Carl Vickers, is he fit? Does he just walk back into the team? Same with Taylor. Is Johnson injured? There's a few of the midfield question marks that never really go away, we just mentioned there. And it's an away game. You know, I would have had this down as an Adamida match. Or does Kyogo come back in? For the first time in a little while, there's definitely a competitive element to the squad where you don't know the best 11, which is a great way to leave a fantastic match like this, where you've went away from Europe, clean sheet, point in the bag. And, you know, like I mentioned with Scales and Johnson, for me, firmly became Champions League players tonight in my book. No 2 ways about it. And the team did great. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes of this one. Can't wait to catch your comments down below to this one, guys. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Hit the like button, of course, if you enjoyed the video. On screen and now some other stuff that we've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Hail, hail, Mo the Hoops.